Alright, so I'm back messing with my Camaro. I know I had a lot of buddies asking, when I'm going to start back on it, when I'm going to finish it. So I'm actually working on a little bit today, this weekend. I kind of get, the problem with me when it's one of my own personal cars, I'll be 100% honest with you, I get bored really easy. So, and then finding the time to work on my own stuff when I'm build cars for other people is hard. Just because one, it's hard for me to be satisfied with my own personal stuff. So, but you can see what I did was, originally the car is an old bracket car. So originally the plan was just put the motor in it, get the car running. And of course I couldn't just do that. So I started kind of gutting the interior out in it. It originally had a little cage in the car. I didn't really care for it. It was just mild steel, nothing special. It had a big aluminum dash. Actually, it was over the top of this dash, which is the factory dash. So luckily they didn't cut it up too bad. They got, they cut the corners, so I got to fix that. But I didn't really care for the way the cage was done. So I cut all that stuff out. I'm going to redo all that. I'm going to wind up putting the car back more like street style. So I'm going to put carpet back in it, put seats back in it, put a style, a dash back in it. I want it to look like a street car. Still going to be a little fun little play, take to the track. But that's kind of where I'm at. Like I said, I got to finish the fuel system. You can see they got a bunch of stuff going on back here. So I got to get all that stuff tidied up. This is the dash that they had in it. It's just not my style. Like I said, that's old school. Kind of, like I said, if you can imagine, this had all that big aluminum on top of that other dash, so it was just big and gaudy. I didn't really care for it, and I want to put something that looks a little bit more modern in it. I want to eventually get it all the way back to a street car, so that's kind of what the plan is. So hopefully I can get all that, like I said, and get it all finished up. I want to put carpet, seats, real door panels. Everything works in the car as far as like the windows and all that. So, but what I'm working on today is basically, I had this motor in another one of my cars. Like I said, it's an LS swap, so that already drives people crazy. But the motor runs really good. I'm gonna get the alternator mounted. That's what I'm gonna work on today. I've already got pretty much motors in, headers are on, everything pretty much ready to go on the fuel system. I'm gonna change them. I don't know if I'm gonna put a tank in it or if I'm gonna keep the fuel cell. But I've got to finish running the fuel system, get that done, and then I can start wiring the car. And then once I get all that, I can kind of start buttoning the car back up. But for now, what I'm going to do, as you can see, I got to mount that right there. So the problem is, the alternator hits the frame. So I don't want the alternator. They sell brackets that you can put the alternator way out here. I don't really want the alternator way out there. So what I'm going to do is just cut the frame, basically modify the frame, which is probably gonna drive some people crazy, but it doesn't really matter to me. I'm gonna cut the frame, get my alternator mounted down low, and then like I said, once I get all that done, that'll kind of finish that part of it, and then I can kind of jump on to the other stuff. But so y'all just kind of stay watching, and we'll see if we can get this thing mounted up in there. All right, so as you can see, we've got our big ugly hole cut. What I'm gonna do now is just kind of test fit it a couple times, make sure I got plenty of clearance. I still got to cut that little back corner of that window out, and then I'll make me a couple pieces of steel, kind of try to make it look like a pocket that was actually made in there. And then of course, when you cut one thing, you got to cut several other things. So what we got to do now, let me get over here and show you. And so the issue I'm having right this second is the stud is so long, you can see it on the back of the alternator. So what I'm gonna have to do is actually cut this stud down, and then cut the back of the alternator so it'll actually clear to be able to get a positive wire on the back of it that'll help charge the battery. So that's what we're gonna work on next. We'll keep rocking. All right, so I got the stud cut. Basically what I did is I shortened the stud like I talked about, and then what I did is I actually notched this little plastic cover. So what I'm gonna do is actually run my wire through that. That way it doesn't have to come sit off the back of it. It'll actually have like a nice little window it can come through, and that'll kind of give me a little bit more clearance. Because I had a little bit, but you don't really want this positive stud to be, close to anything metal, short out, and burn the car down. So I wanted to make sure that I had plenty of clearance on that. So I went ahead and took a little bit off that back of that stud and shortened it, and then that way when I get everything mocked up, it'll fit back where I need it to. All right, so I got everything mocked up and on there. That's basically it right there. You can see what I did. Kind of self-explanatory. Cut the big hole. like I said, to give us a little bit of room on the frame. What I did on the stud, I kind of showed you. I just kind of trimmed the stud down. That was just to give it a little bit of room on the back of it. For what I'm doing on this car, like I said, I don't know that this is going to be the permanent engine that stays in this car, but just to be able to have something to play around with. I mean, this motor runs good, so kind of something I can take to the track every now and then, street strip, play with a little bit. So it's going to stay in it for a little while. So for what I'm doing, it kind of serves the purpose. It's not going to have any air. It's not going to have power steering. I still got to go through, and you can see where they had the old line locks and stuff in there. I personally don't run line locks, so I'm going to get rid of all that stuff and eventually put the fender wells back in the car, make it look like a real street car anyway. Like I said, eventually the whole goal is to kind of go away from the, I guess you call it the bracket style car that it was, put it back more street just a little bit at a time. But at least now, if I can get the car up and running, it's just going to keep me motivated to keep messing with it and have fun with it. I can keep kind of working at it as I go. But we're going to keep on it. But like I said, there it is right there. I've still got to go through, now that I've got all the test fitting done, I'll go through and make me some plates, kind of cover everything back up. And once I TIG everything in there, and I'll hide it all really. Basically, you won't really be able to tell when everything's in there. I'll paint it all back black, and it'll kind of hide everything and goes away. You won't really notice that it's been cut. And like I said, I mean, for me, I don't care about originality anyway. I just want to have it function. So that kind of finishes up on that. Like I said, once I get the piece tigged in there, we'll show you how that turned out. And I'll show y'all while I'm here. I'll show y'all, like I said, my next project I got. Like I said, it's not that I have a shortage of anyone, but any car guy can tell you pretty much that, liking cars is really an addiction, really. You can see I still got the Malibu. But this is going to be my next project right here. It's 1970 Chevelle. Like I said, I've got it runs and drives, so for right now, I'm not going to do a whole lot to it. I'm just going to put some different wheels and clean it up a little bit and drive it around, but eventually going to LS swap that one. So stay tuned for this one, because like I said, I'm going to be doing some work on it also. Like I said, it's easy for car guys to get distracted. I've been neglecting my baby. Like I said, it's just been sitting. Doesn't have oil leak on it from sitting under cars, but it's hard to get distracted easy on my own stuff, like I said, and I get time when I want to, and when I get a wild hair to want to work on, I'll start working on them. But there you go for that for today, and hope y'all enjoyed it. Hope it helped everybody out.